In 1958, a small sparrow caused the deaths of 40 million people. When a government fails to think about the future, it cannot be considered a mistake, but stupidity. The consequences of such actions cause millions of people to suffer. This event is regarded as the most tragic in history. In 1958, when Mao Zedong was China's president, China was not as developed as it is today. At that point in time, China was a poor country with a population of approximately 650 million people, who were mainly dependent on agriculture. However, China was short of food, and the amount of crops they produced was barely enough for their own country. Although they could have supplied the crops, they were unable to earn some money by selling them outside the country. This lack of food was accompanied by some terrible diseases like dengue, malaria, cholera, and plague. President Mao Zedong promised the Chinese people that bringing communist rule to China would make it a much better country. Britain was the richest country in the world at the time, and America was second. Mao Zedong decided that he would improve China so much that it would overtake America as the world's second largest economy. For this reason, he came up with a plan called the Great Leap Forward in China, which means a giant leap into the future. He asked all the people of the country to make small furnaces in their homes to make steel iron. In this, China will advance in terms of economy, and all farmers are told to cultivate abundantly so that the proper food supply of the country can be provided and the crops can be sold outside the country. However, another problem facing Mao Zedong was the outbreak of various diseases in China. Cholera, malaria, dengue, and plague kill many people every year, and these diseases are spread by insects like mosquitoes. Then Mao Zedong decided to launch a campaign called the Four Pest Campaign, and it turned out to be the world's biggest mistake. A total of 4 animals are targeted in this campaign: mosquitoes, flies, mice, and sparrows. Mao Zedong tells every person in the country to kill these 4 animals wherever they see them. This will reduce the number of diseases in the country, and the economy of the country will advance. Now, because of killing mosquitoes and flies, these 2 insects can cause diseases such as dengue fever, malaria, and cholera. The plague is caused by rats. Now you must be wondering why it is said to kill sparrows, as sparrows do not spread any diseases. If Chinese President Mao Zedong had liked an idea, then he wouldn't have made any judgments about introducing it in the country. At that time, information came to the government that 1 sparrow eats about 10 pounds of crops in a year. So they calculated that there are unknown how many billions of sparrows there are who eat 10 pounds of crops every year. Killing all the sparrows could save a significant amount of crops, which could then be sold abroad to boost the country's economy. For this reason, Mao Zedong said, our country would run very well without these 4 animals. From here begins the campaign to kill these 4 species of creatures, which gradually took the form of the Chinese people's war against these 4 species of animals. From 5-year-old children to the army, people were also joined. However, people did not have as much fun killing mosquitoes and rats as they did killing sparrows. Because sparrows were easily seen, they could not hide like mice or mosquitoes. They chose new methods to kill sparrows, one of which was that the Chinese chased the little innocent birds by banging dishes. The sound of dishes scared the birds, but they did not come down and kept flying in the sky. When these birds fell to the ground tired of continuous flight, the Chinese pounced on them like ferocious hunters and killed them. Besides this method, small children killed sparrows one by one with slingshots, many with guns. They break the nests of these birds and crack their eggs. Killing their young is done to prevent these birds from reproducing. From school kids to old people, city to village, common people or army men, everyone hunts sparrows. Even in those days, there were competitions where the person who killed the most birds was awarded a prize. The children who killed the most sparrows were also given prizes in school. They behaved so brutally that they used to make garlands of dead sparrows and hang them around their necks. Their brutality was so high that they killed about 200,000 sparrows on the first day of the Four Pest Campaign. Killing birds is an addiction to Chinese people. They find pleasure in this cruel act. From 1958 to 1959, they killed about 1 billion sparrows in 1 year. Besides, they killed about 1.5 billion rats, 22 million pounds of flies, and 25 million pounds of mosquitoes. Let me tell you about an incident from that time, when a group of sparrows took refuge in the Polish embassy in Beijing to escape the Chinese. The people wanted to enter the embassy to kill the birds, but the embassy people stopped them. Then the Chinese surrounded the embassy from all sides and began to play the cymbals loudly, to the sound of which the flock of birds began to fly again into the sky. And then they were shot dead. In the next 2 years, the sparrow bird becomes almost extinct in China. But Chinese people got addicted to killing birds. Now they started killing other birds too. In this, the number of all kinds of birds in China is greatly reduced. As a result of this brutal killing, Mao Zedong's Four Pests campaign was successful. However, the Chinese people began to suffer the consequences of going against the laws of nature. Many of you know about the food chain. As in the food chain, in this nature, every animal is important. For example, frogs eat insects, snakes eat frogs, and eagles eat snakes. If you remove any animal from this chain, then the balance of nature will be disturbed. For example, if you remove eagles from nature, then the species of snakes will increase. Again, if the species of snake becomes extinct, then the amount of frogs will increase a lot. Whenever there is a disruption in this food chain, it will cause a disaster for nature. Chinese people defied the laws of nature. They killed sparrows and other birds in such numbers that they almost became extinct. But then, no one thought that these birds eat small insect pests as well as crops. These kit moths destroy crops. Due to the excessive killing of birds, the number of kit moths in China has increased several times within 1 year. The most terrible of these were the swarms of locusts, which would come in swarms and destroy thousands of acres of crops in a matter of minutes and move on to the next village. Chinese people could not imagine such a terrible situation. The swarms of locusts grew to such an extent that within 1 year there were severe crop shortages throughout China. Even the use of pesticides was of no use. Chinese people were reaping the results of obstructing the laws of nature. Due to the continuous lack of crops, there's a food crisis in China, and famine occurs throughout the country. They started moaning for 1 grain of the crop. During this time, people started eating leaves, roots, and even soil to satisfy their hunger. Mao Zedong realized that sparrows do more good than harm by eating various insects. He immediately issued a prohibition against the killing of sparrows, but by then, it was too late. In the famine that occurred in the next 2 years due to lack of food in China, about 40 million people died, but the Chinese government kept this number of deaths a secret, and they told the world that only 15 million people died in China due to natural disasters. Later, several studies on the famine showed that the number of deaths reported by the Chinese government was much lower. A Chinese journalist, Yang Zhisheng, who was born in 1940, witnessed the famine firsthand, discussed it in detail in his book Tombstone, The Great Chinese Famine, and put the death toll at 30 to 40 million. And let me tell you that the Chinese government has banned this book. And still, this terrible famine is not discussed anywhere in China. And this kind of stupidity of the Chinese government did not stop once. When Mao Zedong died in the 70s, the new Chinese government advised the village farmers to catch wild animals and sell them in the market to increase their income, because of which all terrible diseases appeared in China. From today's video, here's a simple question for you. The campaign that started the killing of innocent sparrows in China, what is the name of that campaign? Answer the question in the comment box, and let me know how you liked the video.